The first thing you need to know about my wife is that she married me for a piece of plastic. The second thing is that I'm about to make her pay for it in ways she never imagined. My name is Nick Harper, and I'm sitting in my garage at 6 in the morning, staring at a fake green card that cost me 12 years of marriage, a daughter's trust, and whatever dignity I had left. The forgery is decent, professional even. But when you've spent your life working with your hands, fixing things that are broken, you learn to spot the flaws others miss. The card trembles slightly in my grip, not from fear, from rage so pure it could power the entire Dallas grid. 3 days ago, I thought I was living the American dream. House in the suburbs, successful HVAC business, beautiful wife, smart kid. Now I know the truth. I was just another mark in an elaborate con game that started the moment Katya Ivanova walked into Murphy's bar 12 years ago. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up and tell you how a simple Texas boy got played by a woman who could teach masterclasses in manipulation. Nick, honey, can you move the truck? It's blocking my good light for the Instagram post. I looked up from the grill where I was nursing some brisket that had been smoking since dawn. Katya stood on our back deck, phone in hand, wearing a sundress that probably cost more than most people's rent. At 33, she still turned heads wherever she went. High cheekbones, blonde hair that caught sunlight like spun gold, and eyes the color of winter sky. Sure thing, babe, I said, wiping my hands on my apron. Can't have the truck ruining your aesthetic. She missed the sarcasm completely, already posing next to the patio furniture we'd bought last spring. Everything in Katya's world had to be picture perfect for her followers. All 847 of them. Our daughter Emily rolled her eyes from her spot at the picnic table, where she was reading some thick fantasy novel instead of helping with party prep. At 13, she'd inherited her mother's beauty and my BS detector. The combination was going to make her teenage years interesting. Dad, why does Mom need to photograph everything? Emily asked, not looking up from her book. Your mother's building her brand, sweetheart. She's going to be the biggest real estate agent in Dallas. Uh-huh. Emily's tone suggested she found this about as likely as finding unicorns in the backyard. I moved my work truck, a beat-up Ford with Harper HVAC painted on the sides, and watched Katya arrange and rearrange the same shot 15 times. This was our life now. Everything staged, everything performed, everything fake. The irony wasn't lost on me. By noon, our backyard was full of neighbors and friends, the kind of suburban gathering that looks perfect from the outside. Marco Delgado, my foreman and closest friend, was holding court near the beer cooler, telling war stories from our latest commercial job. Lisa Chen from next door was pumping Katya for gossip while her husband, Dave, made awkward small talk with whoever would listen. Then there was Tyler Brooks. Tyler showed up fashionably late in his BMW, wearing clothes that cost more than I made in a month. Real estate mogul, according to his business cards. A-hole, according to my gut instinct. He'd been mentoring Katya in the real estate business for 6 months, and something about the way he looked at my wife made me want to introduce his face to my fist. Nick! Tyler's voice boomed across the yard as he approached with that politician's smile. Heck of a spread you've got here. That brisket smells incredible. Family recipe, I said, not bothering to match his enthusiasm. Been in the Harper family for 3 generations. Outstanding. You know, Katya tells me you're quite the craftsman. Built most of this deck yourself, right? I nodded, wondering why everything Tyler said sounded like he was running for office. Impressive, really impressive. You've got a good woman there, Nick. Katya's got real potential in this business. Natural talent. The way he said natural talent made my skin crawl, but I kept my expression neutral. She's always been good with people. That she has. Tyler wandered off to find Katya, and I watched them talk by the pool. Nothing inappropriate. They kept proper distance, maintained professional body language, but something felt off. Maybe it was the way Katya's laugh got higher when Tyler was around, or how she touched her hair more often. Little things that added up to a big problem. You okay, boss? Marco appeared at my elbow, beer in hand. You look like someone pissed in your barbecue sauce. Just thinking. Dangerous habit. What about? I nodded toward Katya and Tyler. You notice anything weird about those two? Marco followed my gaze and shrugged. She's hot. He's rich. And you're standing here instead of over there. Basic math, my friend. Thanks for the pep talk. Hey, I'm just saying, Maybe pay a little more attention to your wife and a little less to your work. Easy for him to say. Marco was divorced and seemed to prefer it that way. No complications, no drama, no wondering if your spouse was planning something behind your back. The party wound down around sunset. I was cleaning the grill when I heard Katya's voice drifting from the kitchen window. She was on the phone, speaking in rapid Russian, or maybe Ukrainian. I'd never learned to tell the difference. Her voice was hushed, urgent. I caught a few English words mixed in: money, soon, and almost ready. When she came outside a few minutes later, her smile was back in place. Great party, honey. Everyone had such a good time. Yeah, it was nice. Who were you talking to? My mother. She wanted to know about Emily's school year. In the middle of the night over there? Katya's smile flickered for just a second. She has insomnia. You know how it is. I didn't know how it was. I'd never met Katya's parents, never even video called with them. In 12 years of marriage, they'd remained mysterious figures who sent birthday cards with no return address and called at odd hours. That night, after Emily was in bed and Katya was in the shower, I found myself looking through her purse. Not proud of it, but something was eating at me. I found the usual stuff: wallet, makeup, receipts from stores I didn't recognize, and a second phone, a cheap prepaid smartphone tucked into a side pocket. My hand shook as I powered it on. The screen was locked, but I could see dozens of missed calls and text messages. The contact names were all in Cyrillic script. I heard the shower shut off and quickly put everything back. But as I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling while Katya slept beside me, one thought kept circling my brain. What else don't I know about my wife? The baby monitor was supposed to be for emergencies, a way to hear if Emily needed anything during the night. She'd outgrown it years ago, but we'd never bothered to take it down from her room. Good thing, because that's how I learned the truth about what my friends really thought of me. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I'd come home early from a job site because the client had changed their mind about the entire HVAC system, again, and I needed to recalculate everything. Katya's car wasn't in the driveway, but I could hear voices from Emily's room, female voices laughing and talking. I was about to head upstairs to see who was visiting when I heard my name through the monitor receiver in the kitchen. Honestly, don't know how Katya stands it, someone was saying. It sounded like Irina Volkov, one of Katya's closest friends. Nick is so basic, like painfully basic. He's not that bad, another voice replied. Jenny Martinez, probably. She was usually the voice of reason in Katya's friend group. Please. The man drives a truck with his name painted on it and thinks Olive Garden is fine dining. What did you see in him, Kat? There was a pause, and then I heard my wife's voice, clear as day. A green card. The laughter that followed felt like ice water in my veins. Oh my God, you didn't, Irina squealed. I mean, he's sweet and everything, Katya continued, and he's a good father. But let's be honest, I married him for the citizenship. My tourist visa was about to expire, and he was so eager to play hero. That's so bad, Jenny said, but she was laughing too. It worked out okay. He's stable, reliable, good provider. And now that I'm getting into real estate, with that gorgeous Tyler Brooks mentoring you, Irina added with a suggestive tone. Tyler's just business, Katya said, but there was something in her voice that suggested otherwise. Sure he is. The way he looks at you is definitely all business. We're just friends. Friends who text each other at midnight? More laughter. My hands were clenched so tight my knuckles had gone white. Look, Katya said, Nick served his purpose. He got me legal status, gave me a daughter, provided stability while I figured things out. But I'm not going to spend the rest of my life married to someone who thinks the height of sophistication is a craft beer. So what's the plan? Irina asked. I don't know yet. Tyler keeps hinting that he wants more than friendship, and honestly, he could give me the life I actually want. But divorce is complicated when you're not technically. Technically what? There was another pause, longer this time. Nothing, never mind. Let's talk about something else. I stood in my kitchen, listening to my wife and her friends move on to gossip about other people, feeling like someone had reached into my chest and squeezed my heart until it stopped beating. 12 years. 12 years of marriage, of building a life together, of believing we were partners. And it was all a lie. That evening, I grilled steaks for dinner and made small talk about Emily's school project and Katya's latest real estate class. I played the role of devoted husband, while my wife played the role of loving spouse, and both of us pretended everything was normal. But I was watching now, really watching. Over the next few weeks, I started noticing things I'd been blind to before. The way Katya's eyes lit up when Tyler's name appeared on her phone. How she'd suddenly developed an interest in expensive restaurants and designer clothes. The fact that she'd been taking a lot of client meetings that seemed to happen during dinner hours. I started paying attention to our finances too. We kept separate checking accounts but shared credit cards. Katya had been spending more lately, a lot more. Clothes, jewelry, spa treatments. When I asked about it, she said, image was important in real estate. You have to look successful to attract successful clients, she explained, showing me a receipt for a purse that cost more than most people's mortgage payment. Maybe start with some actual sales before you worry about looking the part, I suggested. Her smile went cold. Not everyone can be satisfied with mediocrity, Nick. The comment stung because it was designed to. Katya had a talent for finding the exact words that would hurt most. 3 weeks after the baby monitor revelation, I was installing a new air conditioning system at a downtown office building when Marco pulled me aside. Boss, I probably shouldn't tell you this, but I thought you should know. What is it? I saw Katya yesterday. At that fancy steakhouse on McKinney, she was with some guy in an expensive suit. My stomach dropped. Tyler Brooks? Yeah, that's the one. They looked close, real close, like holding hands across the table close. I set down my tools and took a deep breath. You sure? Positive. I was there with my sister for her birthday. They were in a corner booth, but I got a good look. I'm sorry, man. That night, I confronted Katya directly. How was your client meeting today? She was at her vanity, removing makeup. Fine, why? Just curious. New client? Potential client? Still working on them. What kind of property are they looking for? Commercial space, downtown area. She didn't even hesitate with the lie. Expensive taste, I bet. Very. She met my eyes in the mirror. Why all the questions? No reason, just interested in your work. Katya turned to face me. Since when? You've never cared about real estate before. Maybe I'm trying to be more supportive. Or maybe you're being paranoid. The word hung between us like a challenge. I could push harder, demand the truth, force a confrontation, but something held me back. Maybe I wasn't ready to blow up our life based on secondhand information and suspicious behavior. Or maybe I was already planning something else. You're right, I said finally. Sorry, long day. Katya's smile returned. It's okay, honey, I know you work hard. She kissed my cheek and went back to her nighttime routine. I watched her in the mirror, studying the face I'd been looking at for 12 years, and realized I didn't know this woman at all. The next morning, I made a decision that would change everything. I was going to find out exactly who my wife really was. The private investigator was a guy named Pete Kowalski, an old army buddy who'd started a security firm after his discharge. We'd kept in touch over the years, mostly Christmas cards and the occasional beer when he was in town. But Pete specialized in finding things people didn't want found, and I needed answers. You sure about this, Nick? Pete asked over coffee at a diner near his office. Once you know, you can't unknow. I'm sure. Pete studied my face for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, what do you want me to find? Everything. Background check on my wife, surveillance on her activities, financial records if you can get them legally. I want to know who Katya Ivanova really is. Ivanova thought her name was Harper now. Maiden name. She's from somewhere in Eastern Europe, Ukraine, maybe Russia. I never got a straight answer. Pete made notes on a yellow legal pad. How long you been married? 12 years. Kids? One daughter, Emily. She's 13. This is going to take time and it won't be cheap. You prepared for that? I nodded. I'd been squirreling away money from side jobs for months, partly for Emily's college fund, and partly because something in my gut had been telling me to prepare for disaster. One more thing, Pete said. If I find what I think I'm going to find, what's your plan? I don't know yet. Depends what you find. Pete leaned back in his booth. Fair enough. Give me 2 weeks. Those 2 weeks were the longest of my life. I went through the motions of normal life. Work, dinner, family time. While inside, I felt like I was slowly coming apart. Katya seemed oblivious to my internal struggle. Or maybe she was just that good at pretending. The breaking point came on a Thursday night. I was in the garage, organizing tools, and trying to keep my hands busy, when I heard Katya on the phone in the kitchen. She was speaking English this time, her voice low and urgent. I know, but it's complicated. No, he doesn't suspect anything. I can't just leave Tyler. There are legal issues you don't understand. Yes, I want to be with you, but we have to be smart about this. I crept closer to the door between the garage and kitchen. The papers they're not exactly legitimate. What do you mean, what papers? My immigration papers, Tyler. My green card. It's not real. My blood turned to ice. I had to do something. My visa was expiring, and Nick was so eager to help. No, he doesn't know it's fake. He's not exactly the suspicious type. Look, if we're going to be together, you need to understand what we're dealing with. If anyone finds out about the card, I could be deported. We need a plan. I backed away from the door, my mind reeling. Not only had Katya married me for citizenship, but her green card was fraudulent. She was an illegal immigrant who'd built her entire life on forged documents. And I was an accessory to federal immigration fraud. The next day, Pete called. We need to meet. Now. I found him at the same diner, but this time he had a thick manila folder on the table. Your wife is not who she says she is, he began without preamble. How so? For starters, her name isn't Katya Ivanova. It's Ekaterina Volkova. She's from a small town outside Kiev, Ukraine. Came to the U.S. on a tourist visa 12 years ago and never left. Pete opened the folder and spread out photographs and documents. Her green card is a fake. Good fake, but fake nonetheless. She paid about $15,000 for it, according to my sources. The marriage certificate is real, but it was obtained under fraudulent pretenses. I stared at copies of documents I'd never seen before. What else? She's been having an affair with Tyler Brooks for 8 months. Hotel receipts, restaurant charges, even a weekend trip to Austin last month when she told you she was visiting a friend. Pete slid a photograph across the table. It showed Katya and Tyler entering a hotel room, his hand on her lower back, her head on his shoulder. There's more. Brooks has been paying for a lot of her expenses, clothes, jewelry, spa treatments. He's also been helping her study for her real estate license, but not in the way you might think. Another photograph. Katya and Tyler in what looked like a hotel room, both partially dressed. I'm sorry, Nick, I know this isn't what you wanted to hear. I gathered up the photographs and documents, my hands surprisingly steady. What about her family, her parents? That's where it gets interesting. Her parents are real, and they're in serious financial trouble. Medical bills, from what I can gather. Katya's been sending money back home, but not much. Couple $100 a month. She told me they were comfortable. Far from it. Her father had a stroke 2 years ago. They've been struggling ever since. I closed the folder and looked at Pete. What would happen if someone reported the fake green card? Immigration and Customs Enforcement would investigate. If they found evidence of fraud, she'd be detained and likely deported. The marriage wouldn't protect her if it was entered into fraudulently. And me? Depends. If you can prove you didn't know about the fraud, you'd probably be okay. If they think you were complicit, Pete shrugged. Immigration fraud is a federal crime. I paid Pete his fee and drove home in a daze. Everything I'd believed about my life, my marriage, my family, all of it was built on lies. But as I sat in my driveway looking at the house I'd worked so hard to buy and maintain, a different emotion started to replace the hurt and betrayal. Anger. Pure, focused, righteous anger. Katya had used me. She'd built her entire American life on my back, using my love and trust as stepping stones to get what she wanted. And now that she had it, she was ready to throw me away for a richer, more sophisticated model. Well, two could play that game. I walked into my house with a smile on my face for the first time in weeks. Hey, honey, I called out. How was your day? The beauty of being married to someone for 12 years is that you know all their habits, weaknesses, and blind spots. Katya thought she was playing chess while I was playing checkers. Time to show her she was wrong. I started with the obvious move, gathering evidence. My phone became my best friend. Every conversation, every suspicious phone call, every lie about where she was going, I recorded it all. Texas is a one-party consent state, which meant I could legally record any conversation I was part of. And since Katya had gotten comfortable lying to my face, I was part of a lot of conversations. Where are you going tonight? I asked one Tuesday evening as she got dressed for another client meeting. Showing a property to a potential buyer. Might run late. What kind of property? Commercial space downtown. The client is very particular. I nodded and smiled. Well, good luck. Hope you make the sale. Thanks, honey. She kissed my cheek, and I caught a whiff of expensive perfume I'd never smelled before. After she left, I called the restaurant where Pete had seen them before. They had a reservation under Brooks for two. I drove by Tyler's office building, and sure enough, Katya's car was in the parking garage. But I didn't confront them. Not yet. Instead, I went home and called ICE. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, how can I help you? I'd like to report suspected immigration fraud. The agent who took my call was professional but thorough. They wanted details, evidence, documentation. I told them I suspected my wife had obtained her green card fraudulently, and that I had evidence she was not who she claimed to be. What kind of evidence? Forged documents, false identity information, admission of fraud on recorded conversations. We'll need to review everything before we can take action. Can you come in tomorrow? I made the appointment and spent the rest of the evening organizing Pete's files and my own recordings. By the time Katya came home at midnight, claiming her client meeting had gone longer than expected, I had everything ready. How did it go? I asked, not looking up from the TV. Really well. I think they're going to make an offer. That's great, babe. What kind of business are they in? There was a pause. Import, export. Interesting. What do they import? Another pause. I'm not sure. We didn't get into specifics. I finally looked at her. She was standing in the doorway, still in her dress and heels, looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. You look tired, I said. Long day. Very long. I'm going to shower and go to bed. Good idea. Sweet dreams. She hesitated, like she wanted to say something else, then went upstairs. I heard the shower start and smiled to myself. Tomorrow was going to be very interesting. The ICE office was in a nondescript federal building downtown. The agents I met with, Morales and Lee, were exactly what you'd expect from federal law enforcement. Serious, thorough, and unimpressed by sob stories. This is substantial evidence, Agent Morales said after reviewing everything I'd brought. The forged green card alone is enough for us to open an investigation. What happens next? I asked. We verify the information you've provided, run our own background checks, and if everything checks out, we'll move forward with detention and removal proceedings. How long does that take? Depends. Could be days, could be weeks. We'll need to coordinate with the document fraud unit and get warrants for any searches. Agent Lee leaned forward. Mr. Harper, I have to ask, did you have any knowledge of your wife's immigration status when you married her? None. I believe she was here legally on a work visa that was about to expire. She told me marrying me would help her get permanent residency, but I thought that was the normal process. And you never saw her green card before now? She always handled the paperwork herself. Said she didn't want to burden me with the bureaucracy. The agents exchanged glances. We'll be in touch, Agent Morales said. In the meantime, don't let your wife know about this investigation. We need to maintain operational security. I drove home feeling lighter than I had in months. For the first time since this nightmare started, I was taking action instead of just reacting. But I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. That evening, I had dinner with Marco at our usual sports bar. Over nachos and beer, I told him everything. Jesus, Nick, I knew something was off, but this is crazy. It gets worse. I think she's planning to divorce me and marry Tyler. Based on what? I pulled out my phone and played him one of the recordings I'd made. Katya's voice filled the space between us. I can't keep pretending forever, Tyler. Nick is a good man, but he's not the life I want. Once I get my citizenship sorted out, we can be together properly. Marco whistled low. Wow. What are you going to do? I'm going to give her exactly what she deserves. Which is? I smiled, and Marco actually leaned back a little. You'll see. The next few days were a masterclass in acting normal while planning someone's destruction. I went to work, came home, had dinner with my family, and pretended everything was fine. Meanwhile, ICE was building their case, and I was building mine. I started small. Katya had been using our shared credit card for her dates with Tyler, probably thinking I wouldn't notice or wouldn't care enough to check. I printed out statements going back 6 months and highlighted every charge that corresponded with her client meetings. Expensive dinners, hotel rooms, jewelry purchases, spa treatments. It was all there in black and white. I also started documenting her lies. Every false story about where she was going, every fake client meeting, every made-up real estate class. I kept a detailed log with dates, times, and what she actually did instead. But the real breakthrough came when I found her second phone. She'd gotten careless, leaving it in her purse when she went to shower. I had maybe 10 minutes before she'd notice it was missing. I powered it on and started taking screenshots of everything I could find. Text messages with Tyler going back months. Photos she'd sent him that definitely weren't meant for a real estate mentor. Conversations about their future together and what they were going to do about the Nick problem. And then I found the smoking tool, a text thread with someone named Dmitry, all in Ukrainian, but with enough English mixed in for me to understand the gist. They were discussing new documents, a new identity, and a way to make her marriage to me disappear. I took pictures of everything, put the phone back, and went downstairs to wait. An hour later, my phone rang. "Mr. Harper, this is Agent Morales. We're ready to move forward. Can you make sure your wife is home tomorrow morning around 7 a.m.? She'll be here. Good. And Mr. Harper, you might want to have your daughter stay somewhere else tonight. This could get complicated." I hung up and looked at the ceiling, where I could hear Katya moving around in our bedroom. Tomorrow morning, her carefully constructed life was going to come crashing down, and I was going to be there to watch every second of it. I sent Emily to spend the night at her friend Sarah's house, telling her I had an early work emergency and didn't want to wake her up. She accepted the explanation without question. One of the benefits of being a reliable parent is that your kid trusts you when you need them to. Katya was suspicious, though. Why does Emily need to sleep over on a school night? It's not a school night. Tomorrow's Saturday. She frowned, clearly having lost track of the days. Still seems unusual. Sarah's parents are taking the girls to some museum exhibit, educational stuff. I thought Emily would enjoy it. Katya shrugged and went back to her phone. She'd been texting constantly for the past hour, probably coordinating with Tyler about their weekend plans. I went to bed early and lay there listening to her make quiet phone calls in the bathroom, speaking in rapid Ukrainian. She was agitated about something, her voice sharp and urgent. Whatever was happening, she was stressed. Good. My alarm went off at 6 a.m. Katya was still asleep, looking peaceful and beautiful in the morning light. For just a moment, I remembered why I'd fallen in love with her 12 years ago. Then I remembered everything she'd done since, and the moment passed. I made coffee and waited. At exactly 7 a.m., there was a loud knock on the front door, the kind of knock that means business. "Nick?" Katya's voice drifted down from upstairs. "Someone's at the door. I'll get it," I called back, but I didn't move from my spot at the kitchen table. The knocking continued, more insistent now. "Nick, the door!" "Coming," I shouted, but I stayed put and took another sip of coffee. Finally, I heard Katya's feet on the stairs. She appeared in the kitchen wearing a robe, her hair messy from sleep. "Why aren't you answering the door?" Wasn't sure who it could be this early. The knocking turned into pounding. "Federal agents, open up!" Katya went white. "What did you say?" "Federal agents. Sounds important." She stared at me for a long moment, and I saw the exact second when she realized what was happening. Her face went through a series of expressions: confusion, understanding, fear, and finally, rage. "You didn't." "I did. Federal agents, open the door now." Katya looked toward the front door, then back at me. "Nick, please. We can work this out. I can explain everything." "I'm sure you can. You're good at explaining things." She started toward me, but the front door exploded open. 4 ICE agents in tactical gear flooded into our house, tools drawn. "Ekaterina Volkova, you're under arrest for immigration fraud." Katya raised her hands, still staring at me in disbelief. "You bastard! You absolute bastard! Hands behind your back, now!" They cuffed her right there in our kitchen, reading her rights, while she alternated between sobbing and screaming at me in Ukrainian. I sat at the table, drinking my coffee, watching 12 years of lies finally catch up with her. "You're destroying our family," she shouted as they led her toward the door. "Emily will never forgive you." "Emily will understand when she's older," I said calmly. Truth has a way of making sense eventually. "I loved you. I really loved you." I looked up at her then, this woman I'd shared a bed with for over a decade, who'd given me a daughter, who'd been the center of my world. No, you didn't. You loved what I could give you. There's a difference. Agent Morales stayed behind to talk to me while his partner processed Katya. We found additional evidence during our investigation, he said. Your wife has been sending money to a document forger in Houston. Looks like she was planning to disappear with a new identity. When? Soon. We found plane tickets for next week. One way to Miami, then connecting to a non-extradition country. I nodded. It made sense. She'd been planning her exit strategy, probably with Tyler's help. What happens now? She'll be held pending a removal hearing. Given the evidence of fraud and flight risk, she'll likely be deported within the month. And Tyler Brooks? We're investigating his involvement. If he knowingly aided immigration fraud, he'll face federal charges. After the agents left, I sat in my empty house and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no regret, no relief. Just emptiness where 12 years of shared life used to be. Then my phone rang. Emily. Dad? Sarah's mom saw something on the news about police at our house. Is everything okay? I closed my eyes. Come home, sweetheart. We need to talk. The conversation with Emily was the hardest thing I'd ever done. How do you explain to a 13-year-old that her mother is a criminal who married her father for citizenship? How do you tell your daughter that half her life has been built on lies? Emily listened without interruption as I told her everything. The fake green card, the affair, the planned disappearance. When I finished, she sat quietly for a long time. Are you and Mom getting divorced? She finally asked. Probably, if she doesn't get deported first. Good. I looked at her in surprise. Good? Dad, I'm not stupid. I knew something was wrong. Mom never really loved us the way we loved her. She was always performing, always pretending. It was exhausting. Emily leaned against me on the couch. I'm sorry this happened to you, but I'm not sorry it's over. That's when I finally cried. 3 weeks later, Katya was gone. The deportation hearing was a formality. The evidence was overwhelming, and her lawyer, a public defender who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, advised her to accept removal rather than fight it. She tried to call me from the detention center, but I didn't answer. She sent letters through her lawyer, alternating between apologies and threats, but I threw them away without reading them. The only communication I acknowledged was about Emily. Katya wanted visitation rights, wanted to maintain a relationship with her daughter. I told the lawyer that Emily could make that decision when she turned 18. Emily chose not to visit her mother before the deportation. Tyler Brooks was arrested 2 days after Katya was removed from the country. The FBI found evidence that he'd not only known about her immigration fraud, but had been actively helping her plan her escape. He was charged with harboring an illegal alien and conspiracy to commit immigration fraud. His real estate empire collapsed within a week. Turns out, a lot of his business practices couldn't stand up to federal scrutiny. I felt no satisfaction watching his downfall. Revenge, I learned, is like junk food. It tastes good going down, but leaves you feeling empty afterward. The house felt different without Katya in it, quieter, but also more honest. Emily and I fell into new routines, learned to be a family of two. She helped me cook dinner and I helped her with homework. We watched movies on Friday nights and worked in the garden on weekends. It was better, not perfect, but better. Marco became a regular dinner guest, and Lisa from next door started bringing over casseroles for the poor single father. I suspected she had ulterior motives, but her cooking was excellent, so I didn't complain. Pete stopped by one evening with a beer and an update. Katya's back in Ukraine, he said, living with her parents again. Word is she's working in a factory, trying to pay off the debts from her legal fees. What about her parents' medical bills? Still struggling, turns out she wasn't sending them as much money as she claimed. Most of what she made here went to maintaining her lifestyle. I thought about the woman I'd married, the dreams she'd had of American success, and felt something that might have been pity. Tyler? Plea bargain. 2 years federal prison, 5 years probation. His lawyer's trying to get him into a minimum security facility. Good. Pete studied my face. You okay with all this? How it turned out. I considered the question. Was I okay? My marriage was over, my family was broken, and I'd learned that 12 years of my life had been built on lies. But Emily and I were closer than ever. I didn't have to pretend anymore, and I was free to build something real. Yeah, I said finally. I think I am. 6 months after Katya's deportation, Emily and I took a vacation to Colorado. We went hiking in the mountains, ate at local diners, and talked about everything and nothing. On our last night, as we sat by a campfire under more stars than you can see in Dallas, Emily asked me a question. "Dad, do you think you'll ever get married again?" I poked at the fire with a stick, sending sparks up into the darkness. "Maybe someday, if I find someone who wants to marry Nick Harper instead of what Nick Harper can give them." "How will you tell the difference?" "Good question. I guess I'll have to pay better attention this time." Emily nodded sagely. "Maybe don't marry anyone who needs a green card." I laughed. That's probably good advice. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the fire burn down to embers. In the distance, coyotes howled at the moon, and an owl called from somewhere in the pine trees. "Dad?" "Yeah?" "I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself, for us." I reached over and squeezed her hand. "Thanks, kiddo. That means everything." Later, lying in my sleeping bag under the vast Colorado sky, I thought about the past year and everything that had changed. I'd lost a wife but gained self-respect. I'd discovered betrayal but also strength I didn't know I had. Most importantly, I'd learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even, it's getting free. And for the first time in years, I felt truly, completely free. Emily and I drove home the next day, singing along to classic rock songs on the radio, planning improvements to the house, and talking about her high school plans. The future stretched out ahead of us, uncertain but honest. As we pulled into our driveway, I noticed Lisa from next door working in her garden. She waved and I waved back, thinking that maybe, eventually, I might be ready to trust someone new. But not yet. For now, it was enough to be Nick Harper. Not someone's mark, not someone's stepping stone, not someone's green card. Just me. And that was more than enough.